Okay, today I have a 2012 Honda Odyssey Touring, and this is going to be my first 6-speed Honda that I'm working on. And this drove okay, but it just has the 741 code. And of course, when we pull the transmission out, the converter, the cover, one of the covers on the converter is blue, so you can see it's gotten very hot and the oil's real crappy. And it got to the point where the code comes back pretty frequently because I think he's had this for a while, and now it's time for inspection and he has to get it fixed. So I'm going to take some stuff apart, and then we'll probably continue when I got the shafts and stuff out. This consists of the main shaft, the secondary shaft, the counter shaft, and the third shaft. Okay, so on the third shaft, which is located here, you have the fourth clutch. The main shaft, we have the third and sixth clutch, and on this is the counter shaft, and secondary shaft is the second, fifth, and first clutch. So I'm going to take some of this apart. I'm going to remove the oil baffle, and we'll take some apart, and then we'll probably just continue once I have this the shafts out, and we can look at the clutches and stuff like that. Kind of do, I guess, like a highlight video, and I'm going to show you this. I'm going to get a little closer to and show you this entire solenoid body, which consists of linear solenoids, pressure switches, shift solenoids, and a line pressure solenoid as well. And I guess that's really about it. I'll get a little closer. To get this cover off, you take all the bolts out, 2 different size bolts, and then there's a snap ring on this bearing here that you have to release, and this is a real pain. It probably took me, I had to get a couple of pry bars in from each side here, and I had to release the snap ring. You know, just like anything else, it honestly took me to get this cover probably about 2 hours, and as soon as you just get it right, the thing will just pop right up, no problem, but just a real pain. Here is the filter that I had received already, but again, I'll show you that, and we're going to take some stuff apart. Alright, so I guess I will get a little closer, and here is one of the cooler return filters from on that unit as well, which I'll be getting from the dealer. Alright, so let me get a little closer. I have the bolts out, some stuff I have apart already. I will just be able to take off. And we'll look at this, and I'll kind of give you a 360-degree shot of this, and then once it's apart, we will continue to look at the valve body and stuff. So we'll probably be filming between today and tomorrow. All right, so let me get a little closer on this. Okay, so here is the filter. All right, this filter from Honda is about $150. All right, now I'm going to take this lube tube out here. Okay, get it out of the baffle. Take this lube tube up and put this back in. Okay, now I'm going to take this baffle off so you can see. You can get a nice shot of this trans here. Alright, so I'm going to take this gear off. This is part of the slider setup for reverse. And we've got a bearing. I have the bolt out of the fork. Get this out. Okay, this is the oil baffle. Trying to get this transmission apart, I actually had cracked this plastic, so I'm going to be getting another one of these. Alright, so here's what this looks like. again, third shaft, main shaft, counter shaft, secondary shaft. Probably take the camera off the tripod. You got a pressure switch here. You got two more pressure switches here. I think each clutch, I believe, has its own pressure switch. There's a piece of the gasket. And right here is the secondary valve body that this solenoid body hooks up to. You can see all these feed tubes on here, and there's accumulators in here. All right, here's your linkage for park, reverse neutral. Got some feed tubes here, idler gear here. All right, you got a couple of pressure switches down here. I have to identify those. I'm not really sure what they are. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. One of them, I believe, is a line pressure for the line pressure, and the others, I believe, are for the clutches. So this one here, I'm going to have to get my press in here, my puller, I should say, and I'm going to take this gear out, then I should have access to everything else. There's a couple of bearings on top of here. Okay, this bearing went here, then you have a special nut to hold it down. And then this bearing here, I took this bearing off, but the race stayed on here, so I got to get this off and see if I can snap this bearing back together. And this has another one, and this is left hand. So that goes here, and this goes on top of here. Okay, now let's take a look at this here. This whole setup I'm going to be changing. This actually is very reasonable from Honda. It's an OE, comes with everything here. You have your linear solenoids here. I believe shift solenoids and line pressure solenoid. And here's your pressure switches. And this whole setup from Honda for this is probably about, geez, I think it's probably less than $300. And then your secondary valve body here, so I'll be changing all the O-rings on these feed tubes. But this whole thing is going to be changed. It's certainly not worth putting back for what it costs. And this guy does a lot of driving. Alright, so at this point I'm going to get my other equipment. I'm going to start taking this apart, and then we'll be able to look at the clutches and get a better close-up shot of the valve body. Here is the case. Let me just show you the case real quick. Here's the main case, and this is where the solenoid, that whole solenoid body sits in here, so everything is actually on the outside. All right, and that little snap ring that you have to release, you got to take this cover off and release this snap ring here, and these two covers come off, and there's end nuts that have to come off, and of course the bearings will stay in the case. Race is coming out here. I'll put that back in. All right, so let me just pause it here. And I can start pulling this apart. All right, so let me take some of this stuff off, and then I will get back with you. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, so I got the gear and the bearing off with my puller. Alright, so now it looks like the main shaft seems fairly free. I could take the whole thing out at once. Again, that's the 3rd and the 6th clutch. So let's see if that'll lift out. Okay, pretty beefy. Main shaft. Check the ring grooves. Probably when I overhaul this, I'm probably going to make it easy and just do one shaft at a time so everything stays together. All right, the 3rd shaft should lift right out. Okay, that's the 4th clutch. And again, I like to check for ring grooves. That looks good. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove these feed tubes and take this idler gear out. And then these two will lift out at the same time. There's really no brackets or anything holding these in, so probably the case, the way the case sits in here, I'm sure it holds those tubes in because these will come right out. Right, and there is O-ring, seal on each end. Alright, so this should come out, which it does. Okay. Alright, and now these two should lift out as one. Well, the only other way I would be able to get them out is if I disassembled the secondary shaft, but I don't think I'm really going to have to do that. I think if I... And you know what, there is a washer or a shim here. I don't want to lose that. Down on top of the gear. Okay. Alright, so you know what I'm going to do? Let's take this out. Let's take the bearings out. We can lift the drum off. Alright, 2nd and 5th drum. Remove the sleeve. There we go. Alright, there's also a sleeve down here which feels okay. And on the bottom of the secondary shaft you have a bearing. Very typical to the 5-speed. I don't know if I had mentioned this in the intro, but this is a Honda Odyssey Touring. And from the research that I've done, the Touring is the one that carries the 6-speed. Because what happened with this was I ran the VIN and it came up with the transmission code PV1A, which is a 5-speed. And then, you know, looking, and that's just running the VIN number. And actually I ran on 2 different spots, 2 different sites, and it both came up with the same transmission. But then when you do it manually, put in 2012 Odyssey, you know, with the drop-down menus, then it comes up with the right transmission. So actually, at first, I ordered the wrong parts. All right, differential. This is front wheel drive only. All right, so here is this bearing. All right, so let me give you a shot of this valve body. So we'll see how often these are going to be showing up in the shops. Okay, let me just take the camera off and I'll give you a shot of this valve body here. Okay, so we have the regulator valve body. This is the stator support, and underneath that is the shaft. This is the manual valve body because the manual valve comes out of this one, and this is your main valve body here. All right, this here looks like is what puts the transmission into park. So this will moves and springs. And down in here you have a bearing, and down in here you have a sleeve that has some O-rings on the outside of the sleeve. And on the inside, you want to make sure that there's no ring grooves. And again, your solenoid body plugs right into there. So it's not that bad. It's, you know, very similar but different from the 5-speed unit, like the BDKAs, and this is a BYKA. All right, so let me... we'll continue on this probably later because we'll take the drums apart and check the clutches. But again, this did work okay with the exception of the 741 code. All right, so I will be back shortly. All right, so I have this rest of this transmission, this BYKA torn down, and I'm going to be working on it this morning. Some stuff is clean, I have the valve body pretty much ready to go, but we're going to go over from the case up. We'll go over the different sections of the valve body, the different shafts, clutch packs, again the solenoid body, and again this had come in, drove okay, but it came in with a 741 code. So the converter rebuilder that I use locally here picked the converter up. He cut it open and he called me and he says converter definitely is the problem in this case. He says this transmission has actually a clutch pack in it, a little different from the normal Honda converter. He says the clutches were no good, and it has a piston that has seals on the, like a regular piston also for a clutch pack, on the inside and outside diameter of the piston, rubber seals. And it says it usually takes a great amount of force, and they blow a lot of compressed air in there to blow that piston out so they can change the seals. Once the converter was open, I turned the cover upside down and the piston fell out. And honestly, he's built probably about maybe 15 or 20 of these converters. He says they do that many, maybe like a year, maybe a little more. And he said that's the first time that he's ever seen that piston fall out of there. But this has been an ongoing thing. We've checked his car and he didn't want to leave it, and he didn't want to leave it. Now he's away, so we're doing the transmission. So converter definitely is the problem in this case. And clutches don't look bad, but again, I got the banner kit with the GPX frictions. Okay, the only other thing that I cannot get, you cannot get from Honda because you would have to buy the whole drum, and I cannot get from my supplier are the steel plates. All right, so a lot of times the steel plate on the bottom makes a groove, but the only thing I can do with that is possibly use my sanding disc and just take any kind of edges off and possibly turn the steel over. We put it on top. We'll see what we're going to do with that, because I normally do change the bottom steel because of the groove that the cushion makes. But I'll show you that as well. Okay, so let me get a little closer. We're going to start with the valve body here. Start with the case, what is in the case, and what goes in the case, and then we're going to start from the valve body and work our way up. All right, so I will get a little closer. All right. So here is the front half of the unit, or they may call it the converter housing. Okay, valve body goes here, differential, your shafts line up, and here right here you have a feed tube, a bearing, a sleeve, and another bearing that is pressed fit in here, and I'll show you this setup. Okay, so this is what this setup looks like. Here is a feed tube, all right, a bearing. Here is the sleeve, and here is another bearing, and this goes on the top. And normally when this bearing goes in on the 5-speeds, you would have a retainer with a bolt, but this is just pressed in, a pressed fit in. And the way I got this out was I heated up around the outside of the bearing, around the case. You know, I heated up around here, and then I used my slide hammer. I have a puller, a little kit that as I tighten it, you know, it makes the arms go out. I got it underneath the bearing, and honestly, I heated it up, and it came right out. Okay, these bolts here, there's a few of these around in the unit, and these are actually air bleed bolts, and the ones in the case are for 2nd and 5th. That's what they look like. All right, so they just screw in right here and you tighten them down, and they must be within the circuit. Okay, so here again, here is the feed tube, and you got to line up. There's 2 grooves down at the bottom, because this will only go in one way because these tabs are offset. All right, so that would go in, and then your bearing would go in, this bearing here. Okay, and then your sleeve, which I'm going to change the O-rings on. The 3 O-rings on the outside, and make sure there's nice and smooth on the inside, and you have to line these tabs up with the grooves in the case as well. Okay, and again, this bearing goes on top, and that is a pressed fit. All right, you have a magnet here, which I take that out and clean that. And these bearings usually slide right out. Well, this one came out before, but I guess it's not coming out so easy now. But this bearing usually comes out easy, and I just check, make sure the case is not worn. All right, and then I'm going to tighten these 2 bolts down here. All right, here is the main valve body, and we have another air bleed bolt here, and this is for 4th and reverse. All right, so I just want to make sure these valves, everything is nice and free. You got full movement on the valves. All right, and then comes the regulator body, pressure regulator valve right here. You have an accumulator right here. I'm not sure what accumulator this was. I was doing some research on this transmission last night, and there's really not much out there, so just whatever I can find, and I was just taking some notes. Okay, so again, regulator body, filter goes in here. Okay, they call this the manual valve body, and the reason why that is because the manual valve gets housed in this section of the valve body, and this is the first accumulator. All right, and then of course the solenoid body all gets hooked up to here. On the outside, you plug it in. Here's all the feed tubes. These are mainly the feed tubes are all right here, and the one I just showed you that goes into the case, those basically are the feed tubes. And I'll show you what one of these feed tubes look like. All right, they're all the same. I think there's about 11 of them. All right, that's what they look like. And one side is open, and the other side has a screen. Okay, and the screen is going to face down into the hole and go in like that. All right, so the manual valve body. All right, and here is your support for your stator. All right, typically there was just an O-ring on here, but now we have a total of 3 O-rings, and this goes in here. All right, I still have the O-rings on there, but that fits in here, and this helps, you know, actuates with your line pressure. And you got a couple more of those bleed bolts on the support. This is sold separately. All right, you want to make sure there's no ring grooves in here. This one I was able to fix. This list price for this around here is $212. So you just want to make sure there's no ring grooves in this. This one had a slight one in it, but I was able to get some sandpaper and sand it out, and that groove is now gone, so this is in good shape. And you have 3rd and 6th clutch bleed bolts, air bleed here. Those are air bleed. Here's your massive pork assembly. All right, actually it's going to catch right in here for park. And here's the secondary valve body. This bolts to the solenoid body. Here's all those feed tubes that I just showed you. You have 3 accumulators on top for the pressure control solenoids, or for the PWM solenoids A, B, and C. And inside here you got a couple of shift valves, one on each side. You want to make sure you got good free movement of those. And again, this is called the secondary valve body. All right, I might have showed you this the other day, but I do have this coming today. This is the oil baffle that covers all the shafts, covers all the, you really can't see the gears too well. So to get this off, you got to remove the reverse section off the 3rd shaft. Yeah, off the 3rd shaft, and then take the fork out, and you take the 3 anchor bolts out, and you'll be able to get that. They break kind of easy, so you got to be careful as you're pulling that transmission apart. Could easily break, and that is about $85 to buy that. All right, you got a couple of tubes here. I believe these may be lube tubes. All right, they are not, they're basically just held in by the case. They're not held in with any kind of brackets or anything. And they can only go in, I believe, one way. So they go from here into the valve body. Okay, filter. Filter from Honda is about $150. All right, now we're gonna let's see. Oh, okay, you know what I wanted to show you? I don't remember. Okay, on the main valve body, right here, two check balls in the main valve body. Okay, I guess that would be about it for the valve body set. Just also, you know, with Honda, they have many different bolt lengths, you know, like for example, so just make sure, I keep the section, whether it be the regulator section or the main valve body. I kind of keep the bolts, you know, all together. All right, you have a couple of speed sensors. All right, and they are right next to each other, but they are both exactly the same. Okay, I'm assuming it's probably input and output speed. They're side by side, but they are the same. But again, I like to put back where it belongs. Let me just turn my light on here. Okay. All right, let me get set up with some of these shafts here. I got something to show you on the third shaft, and then we'll go over the clutch packs on the third shaft, the main shaft, and the secondary shaft. All right, so let me get set up for that, and I will be back in a moment. Okay, so we'll start with the third shaft. Okay, the third shaft houses the fourth clutch drum, all right, which is here. All right, the steels are, you know, like I said, we're in good shape, with the exception of, and this one really isn't that bad. It kind of cuts a groove in it. I don't know if you can see it on the outer edge. You know, this is the, like the Belleville wave cushion spring that sits in the piston and kind of sits just like that, and eventually from beating it up it cuts a groove in it. So I normally like to change the bottom steels on every Honda that I do, but this one you cannot get them, they are not available. Okay, so these are the original clutches. Again, really not bad. Clutches really weren't the problem here. Converter was definitely the problem. All right, here is the reverse. The fork goes in here, and the groove, this groove here, or this big lip, is going to face down. All right, you can also see which way it faces by looking at the teeth on the gear here, and they're kind of pointed, and that would match this gear for kind of pointed teeth. And the other side, that goes here, all right, would match the other side of what the slider looks like. So just remember kind of the big lip, or there's a groove here, that's going to face down. Okay, now this drum slides on back like this, and then there is a snap ring that holds that drum in place. Okay, now inside this third shaft, I removed another snap ring. All right, I removed another snap ring, which is this small snap ring here. And inside the third shaft, there is a sleeve. That's got to get a couple of O-rings. All right, so then when you lube it up real good, I'm going to put new O-rings on it, shove it back in, and put the snap ring back on. All right, so that is the third shaft. So now I'm going to just get set up with the main shaft. I'm going to put this stuff back, bring the other stuff over. All right, I will be back again momentarily. Now let me just give you a shot of this. Is the fork here for the that goes onto the third shaft. Typical Honda fork. Okay, we got the main shaft here. Main shaft is going to house the third and sixth clutch. Okay, so the drum slides on this way because the splines are at the top. This is sixth, and this is third. So third is going to be at the top. Okay, this is the sixth clutch hub here. Has a bearing in it, so I got to press this back on. All right, these are the third clutches. Again, it's got a pretty nasty groove in it. But again, at least most of the steels, you know, the steels are okay, with the exception of that. And I was saying to myself, when we get this thing apart, I hope that the steels are going to be good, because research that I've done in the past, knowing I couldn't really get parts for this. Okay, and again, got the overhaul, got the Rebestos GPX frictions, you know, for this whole unit. All right, so this is the main shaft. I want to make sure this bearing is good. Change these rings, change all the O-rings, even on the third shaft has a couple of O-rings. And I like to make sure these tips here where it goes into the converter are nice and smooth, not pitted up or worn or anything like that. All right, and that is your main shaft assembly. This also comes in all-wheel drive as well, but this one is just front-wheel drive. All right, one more thing on the valve body that I wanted to show you. This goes somewhere right around here. And they call this the cooler return cap. But you'll see that bolted to the valve body. All right, so the next one is the counter shaft. Basically just gears. Now on the counter shaft, let's get rid of this here. I'm going to do one. When I overhaul this unit, I'm going to do one at a time. I'll get the main shaft done, put that aside. I'll get the third shaft done, put that aside, and then instead of just having, you know, like like I know with the Odysseys, like the 02, 03 Odysseys, I can throw everything on the bench, but again, this is my first one. It's not bad to do. Okay, so on this one here, you got a couple of washers and shims that you don't want to lose. All right, one of them is right here. Okay, this gear will come off. All right, then a collar is going to go on here. All right, so this collar is going to go on here like this, and then you have a thinner washer or shim that's going to go. And then the gear is going to go, and then the bearing, and then you have a hold-down bolt. Where is that? Okay, so you have a hold-down bolt, and this one here, I don't know if you can see this, it does actually have an arrow to show which way it tightens. So this is opposite when this goes on. All right, the bearing, that'll hold that down. And this is the one, I think, where you have to separate the snap ring to remove the main case. That's a real pain. But if you get it right and you release the snap ring, the shaft should drop down out of the snap ring. But again, it took me honestly a couple hours to get that thing out. Sometimes it's a two-man job. This is the bearing that goes on that, and here is the snap ring. Just to make sure that everything goes smooth, I actually ordered a new snap ring because I couldn't get that one out. It took me a while. All right, so that was the counter shaft, and now we just have the secondary shaft left, which houses the second and fifth clutch. Okay, this here is the hub and gear for fifth. And the first clutch actually is down here. Okay. Here is the drum. All right, so no splines here, fifth gear. You got splines, so the drum's gonna go on this way. And that is second gear. And again, here are the Great Vistas GPXs for those. And here is first. This goes, this is gonna go on here, like that. And then to hold this drum on, you saw the snap ring to hold the other one on. To hold that drum on, you just have a small wire clip to hold that first drum on. And then this one goes into this sleeve. All right, so again, make sure you have no grooves, make sure it is perfect. All right, and this is the secondary shaft. Again, houses the second, fifth, and first clutch. Parts that I need for this, again, I'm getting that oil baffle, I'm getting that snap ring, and I'm getting this cooler return filter because I like these OE from Honda. When I gave my supply the part number, it just comes up with a regular aftermarket one, but I like to use Hondas, I like to use the original one. And everything was actually located in LA, so I'm having everything overnighted, so I will have it today. The converter, I believe for what the guy was saying, they had it in stock, so I should have that today, and I can work on this thing and hopefully get this thing back in a couple of days. All right, so let me get the solenoid body. I have a brand new one of these coming. And from what I understand, these things can range in price from $300 to $600. Okay, again, your PWM solenoids, your on-off solenoids, and pressure switches. You get this whole assembly. On the case, there are, so these are all the same. And on the case, there's three of them, black in color, and they are all the same. Okay, also here is your temp sensor, and that goes into the main case. So this is the solenoid body. Not much you can really do with this. I believe maybe these pressure switches you can get separately. Even if they're aftermarket ones, I believe they can be gotten because they'll unscrew, but the solenoids, I don't think they're sold separately. And the PWM ones, I don't believe you can even get out. Okay, let's take a look at the main case. Okay, so in order to get this unit apart, after you take all these bolts out, and there's some that are, I think, 13mm heads, or 12mm heads and 14, but initially when you have this unit on the bench, these three covers, here have to come off, and the snap ring is in this one that has to be separated from the bearing. And then this cover, when you're putting it back together, you can see the reverse gear or the idle gear, and you can turn it with a screwdriver to mesh everything to get the case to settle, down in place. Temp sensor goes right here. All right, you can either leave it in while you take the case apart, then knock it out from the inside, or if you can get something, sometimes it does stick on the O-ring. Most of the time I knock it out after I get the case off. I just knock it out from the inside so you can hopefully save yourself from buying a temp sensor. Here's the inside of this main case here. All right, then it's going to go through linkage. Linkage comes up here, and then you will have your neutral switch that bolts on, and also the linkage that hooks up to the cable. This is the bracket that hooks up to the cable. All right, and that all goes with this. Your clicker and everything gets hooked up to this. The bracket will be bolted there, and the range sensor goes on top here and bolts to the case. But again, typical Honda stuff, just situated a little different. All right, I guess that's about it. Vent goes here. They give you a new cap. These get hard and brittle. It actually broke on me. You better shut it at the vent. Would be here, and it should have a black cap on it, which actually comes in the overhaul kit. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Okay, that's this right here. And again, it should take your typical O-ring on the converter. So you don't want to forget to put that on. There's an idle gear that sits in the trans. All right, it has a bearing on it, so you want to make sure that all stays together as well. And on this one here, which I actually forgot to show you, on the counter shaft, sprag inside here. You know, I was watching looking at some information on this, and they didn't even really mention the sprag. So I just happened to, the noise you just heard, I knocked the thing over, and this came apart. And I was just going to put it back on, but I see that there is a sprag. Okay. So there you go here. One way and locks the other. Okay, so it looks good here. There's your park gear right there. All right, so I guess that is about it. Again, I did some research. I looked on YouTube. I didn't see much on this 6-speed Honda Byka. Doesn't really seem that bad to do. Pretty much typical, you know, reminds me of the 5-speed one, like the MDKAs and the BDKAs. But you got to be careful when you're ordering parts for the Odyssey, because the Touring, I think there's a Touring and the Touring XL or something like that. They're the ones with the 6-speed transmission, from what I learned. A regular Odyssey is going to have the 5-speed, the PV1A. It's going to have the 5-speed transmission. So at first I got the wrong parts, then I started researching, and then I got the correct parts here so I can overhaul this unit. So, okay, hope you guys enjoyed this. I think we're going to start to be seeing these. They're coming out of warranty. We're going to be seeing these in the shop, and these converters, again, are not the greatest on this transmission. From what I understand from talking to converter guys, they are a little bit of a problem. Because they did change the design of it. Again, it's now a clutch pack versus just, you know, the lining on the plate. Has a piston with O-rings, you know, the whole deal, just like a regular, guy says, just like a regular clutch pack on a transmission. All right, so I guess that is about it. Anything else I can think of, I will let you know, and probably when I get this thing built back up, maybe right before I put the cover on, I'll give you guys a shot of this thing, just to show you what it looks like. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we will see you next one. All right, so I'm coming in to the home stretch with this Byka 6-speed trans, and I got the new solenoid block from Honda that I wanted to show you guys, and I want to give you a tip. With doing research on this trans, I came across a pretty good tip that I saw somebody do. I thought it was a great idea, so I wanted to share that with you also. And just a couple last minute things with this trans, and then we can finish up the video. So I'm going to get a little closer onto the transmission, and I want this again with the bolts. I want to show you something with once the cover's on, you have a couple of washers that are press fitted on here, and I want to show you which way those go, and I want to show you the solenoid pack as well. The solenoid pack it comes with the new section of the valve body. The secondary valve body comes with all new tubes. Really, really nice setup. All right, so let me get a little closer and we will get started. Okay, so let's take two of these bolts loose. Okay, so as I mentioned with Honda and the valve bodies, there's a lot of different size bolts. If you get them mixed up, you may not be sure if you have the bolt in the right spot. And the way to tell is this bolt is in here, okay, it's ready to be tightened. And the head of the bolt here will fit perfectly in between the valve body and the bolt before it gets tightened. Okay, so I'm holding this down and this fits right in here, perfect. Okay, this is the right length bolt for this spot. All right, if it's too low, too high, and you got a little plane here like that, usually is not the right length. But I saw a guy do this and I thought it was a great tip, so I wanted to share this with you guys. You know, again, especially if these bolts get mixed up, I just want to tighten these so I do not forget. Okay. All right, and the end nuts and washers. The washers are press fit. Okay, here is the end nut that goes on the main shaft. Here is the washer. See, it has the little teeth in here. Okay, and here is the end nut for the third shaft and the washer for that. All right, so each of these washers, let me show you, has an X on it. All right, if you could see that right there, that faces up. But you probably have to use like a socket or something to get those on, because it is a press fit. Let me just back out a little bit and raise it up. Okay, so third shaft and main shaft. All right, so once the cover is on, you got to put this on and just kind of bang it onto the splines. It'll bottom out, of course, and then you can go ahead and install the end nut. Okay, I just want to show you guys the solenoid block that I got from Honda. Let me just move this out of the way. All right, let's bring this back down. Okay, so this is brand new from Honda. All right, here are the tubes, and again, new screens in there. Screens face down. All pressure switches, all new PWMs, on-off solenoids. Even comes with the new section of the valve body, just as you see it here. And this set of tubes came in a plastic bag. Maybe, I don't know, they would think they would break or something. I'm not really sure why, but that's it, brand new from Honda. All right, just want to give you guys a shot of this unit before I put the cover on, the main case. It's all ready to go. Now I have a block there underneath because the input shaft is touching the bench. So I do that a lot, even with the 4-speed Hondas and the 5-speed Hondas, because the input shaft sometimes touches the bench. So I need that sitting all the way down flat. And that's where the solenoid body goes that I got from Honda. All right, and I'm just gonna, I don't have the filter bolted in yet, so I'm just gonna pull this thing off so you can just see a quick shot of the valve body and everything here. All right, and that's it. 6-speed Honda Odyssey Touring. The Touring has the 6 speeds, the regular Odysseys should have the 5-speed. So just want to give you a shot of this before I cover it up. All right guys, thanks for watching.